Three, two, one.
Here we go!
System and Soul, thanks for joining us today. Today's going to be a fun conversation. Jason Ogden is here, and Jason was on our podcast doing a little kind of visionary operator conversation with Craig Guffey probably a year or two ago. But Jason has been consistently the yin to my yang and a great balance of conversation, new emerging trends, and maybe one of my favorite people to argue with on topics that we don't agree on. But today we're kind of just pressing record because we were getting into a conversation that I think can benefit all of us right now. And it really lies at the intersection between what is brand, how are we portraying brand, and what is our culture. And if we think about those two as similar, but culture being internal and brand being external in a Venn diagram sort of way, there's an overlap that needs to be authentic to both of those. But we all know that there's been a lot of change over the last 2 years, especially in what we're calling the Great Resignation, hard to hire, hard to find people, and internally, and then at the same time, marketing's shifting external. So, Jason, welcome back. What primed you getting so intentionally focused on this idea and synthesizing some of these ideas?
Yeah, so it kind of came from some different perspectives, I guess. Number one, we're like any other business. We're in the hiring business, and the frequency with which we've hired has increased, especially over the trailing 12 months, maybe 14, 16 especially. So we're getting a lot of repetitions in terms of what's going on and what people are thinking in the marketplace. And another sort of aspect around hiring was, within our services that we provide our clients, we've always identified during sales talent as a potential audience for marketing services, and had relatively few takers historically, and the number of clients who want to put resources around marketing to their existing clients, to attracting talent has skyrocketed, especially the back half of this particular year. And kind of the third sort of basis for the idea was, even if in-person things that were completely shut off returns, I think we can all agree that it's not going to return to the degree that it was there. And when you're operating in B2B world, so much historically of sales funnels were generated through the serendipity of in-person conversation, be it at networking conferences, whatever it may be. And although the business need to find customers and find talent hasn't changed, the ways that we're going to be doing that, I think, is permanently changed, because you're going to see a contraction in opportunities of the serendipity variety, and many more of the conversations that used to start in real world places are going to start online now. And that's really where the connection points to potency of brand and message, kind of started to come about.
I'm gonna start right where you left off, because it's interesting you say start online. My mind went straight to being at a huge trade show where you're almost introduced to these new companies there, and then you go home and you start a conversation. Is that flipping?
It's a great point and a great question. I think we've all kind of at this point taken for granted the hop on a call, video call to do X, Y, and Z in terms of the operational part of our business. By and large, I think sales has adapted to what it takes to win business in today's world. But what's continuing to shift is that starting of the conversation, and how do you start the conversation, right? I think that it's not where it's going to be necessarily yet, but I think the shift has begun.
Why is it hard to start a conversation in the digital world, and what have you seen work?
Sure.
I know you're a fan of really crappy introduction. Like, you have a collection of crappy cold emails that you keep just like on the wall of shame. So what is the antidote? Because at some degree, we're all shooting in the dark trying to shoot our shot.
Yeah, yeah. So, to your point, was probably a point in history where those crappy cold emails, for example, were effective, and it probably had something to do with the fact that it just occurred in an environment that didn't have as much going on as we currently do. So, there's a little bit of a focus of standing out, right? If we're in a metropolitan area and you're listening to this, you're probably getting exposed to somewhere around 10,000 unique messages per day through advertising, social, text, phone calls, emails, the whole gamut of things that we interact with in our society. And, the competition to stand out and to even get noticed is that's just been a trend that's pre-pandemic. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's not slowing down, and that's certainly not slowing down on the digital space, right? Because there's no limits to how much that can grow. So just sheer volume is a part of it. So not only do you need to get people's attention in a more competitive environment, you need to do the second part, which is do something, stand out in some meaningful way that's going to want to make them raise their hand and reach out to you. So it's both getting noticed and, pulling them down the funnel a little bit by standing out and being interesting.
Yeah, there was, I will admit to I was the subject of the, go find something clever on the person's profile and drop that in the email. Like, oh, I really like that article you wrote, or, a friend sent it to me. And, that caught on pretty quick that was, just a baited, loaded lead gen, clickbait for them. And so now, like, those are an absolute no. Cause it went from being a positive,
Yes.
right? Of like, I was doing something unique, even if at least they were working for it. And now it's almost the lazy way. Whereas, I'm a sucker for, you drop a couple really good kind of animated GIFs in an email and that I can relate to. You've got some old school in there with Will Ferrell doing something stupid, and I'm like, all right, this person's got a personality, and they might not suck to get on the phone with. So I like this idea of shifting to digital first. There's a piece of it that you and I have talked about in the shift to digital, remaining human. Right? Like it's not shift to digital and like, let's make sure our CRM's kicking out all these emails. It's like, how do we shift to digital and actually be more human in that environment than we would have, showing up at the trade show or serendipitous at the coffee shop? And do you have any like insights or pointers or thoughts of how we can do that, and what this shift to digital first can look like, and to accelerate the humanity of the conversation?
Yeah. Outstanding question. Yeah. So back to your point on the sort of gimmicky, I noticed this kind of personalized approach around, I get several of those a week, and they almost always are really just highlighting the fact that the sender doesn't in any way know me or what my business is up to, but
Right.
they're trying to, right?
Right.
Like it seems so wildly out of context that it's a detriment, right? So not that. I think one of the most common misperceptions that we see in the marketplace when our prospects are thinking about marketing is, in some ways it's a golden age because there are so many ways to reach people in today's world, and that's great. But oftentimes, almost universally, the tactical things that we can do to reach people are thought about things that we can do to the audience, right? I'm going to do X, I'm going to do Y. And I think about it from my perspective outward, right? So like each one of the tactical outreach things is an arm, and I'm just shooting all of my arms out into the universe. And very rarely do people think about, to your point, that the humanity around it, which is what makes it effective, especially in B2B world where relationships are so critical to long-term success, is it's not thought about from the perspective of the recipient. It's thought about from your perspective. Am I doing all those things that I can do versus what should I do to best help my audience in ways that they respect and that they need, and that isn't an annoyance to them.
Hey, podcast listeners, Chris White here. I want to challenge you with something today. Now, this might sting a little bit. You ready? All right, here it is. Are you limiting your capacity as a leader? We know you're experienced in the world of business, entrepreneurship, and leadership development. We know you're smart, intentional, business-savvy folks. But are you playing too small? One of the greatest steps you can take after years of leading a company or organization is to become a coach for other businesses. I've been a business coach for over 20 years after a 20-year corporate career, and I'm here to tell you, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. It is the most rewarding and gratifying thing that I have ever done in my career. And this is also why Benj Miller and I created System and Soul. We're training coaches right now to help small businesses everywhere experience breakthrough in both the system and the soul side of their business. If you're ready to expand your capacity and create impact like never before, then let's go. Get on my calendar, let's book a call, and I'm happy to introduce you to System and Soul. For more information, visit systemandsoul.com/coach and set up your phone call today.
Do you have any examples from the last month or two that have actually won you over? Because I know just a warning out there, if you cold email Jason, you're subject to be putting through a litany of, you are either the top of the list or the bottom of the list. So it better be good. Do you have any winners?
Well, to your point, there was one that basically acknowledged through the first person narrative, this is a cold sales email, and I know that you hate getting them and you probably get thousands or something to that effect. And that was much more not only just authentic, but they showed that they know me in a way that somebody who's citing what college I went to or what groups I'm a part of, you just could never do. So there was some real empathy in that. And because they were being honest with the issue of being outreach to in a cold kind of way, and how that is often experienced, like I have to admit I had a little bit higher than normal trust level for these guys. Okay. So I did respond and start the conversation. It wasn't something that we needed, but I did respond because of that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Is you can't even respond to all of these cold emails that you get. But if they hit me the right way, I'll at least say I'm not the right person, or I'm set in this area, and give them the courtesy of taking me off their list versus just block, ignore, whatever. That's good. All right. So shift to digital. That was your third. I honestly did not catch your first, so we'll come back to that. But the second one's really interesting because you and I have talked about this for a very long time as a competitive advantage, but there is, in the great resignation, in the talent crisis, this is so huge. And now our clients are coming and asking for it. So it's the idea of, are you marketing for hiring? Talk us through what that actually means, because that might even be like a brand new thought for somebody.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that oftentimes it is. It's just a new way of thinking, but the reality is that the fundamentals and a great number of the available tactics that you would deploy when you're trying to reach new customers would be similar as you do to attract talent. Okay. Now, the exact places where talent might be could be a little different. They might be on different social platforms, for example, but the fundamentals and the tactical things are exactly the same. So the best way that I would advise people to think about it is you've got just different audiences who occupy a full stage funnel, and they're your clients, they're your strategic partners, and they're your talents. And you need to grow and develop sales funnels around all of those audiences.
Yeah. I bet that's going to challenge some people in the moment that have really never thought about that. It's one of those ideas of like the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, right? The second best time is right now, because, you know, if we lose a key hire and we don't have a bench, and we also don't have a pipeline, two separate thoughts, but that pipeline, you know, that a key hire right now could take 6 months, and that could be detrimental for the business or for the leader who then has to go jump in and play that role. So getting proactive, intentional. You and I have, you know, just as you love to criticize cold emails, we talk and joke about Glassdoor reviews as well, right? Like this is the Yelp for what Yelp is for marketing for businesses, Glassdoor is for this recruiting for businesses. And I'm always shocked, how many people don't know about Glassdoors. Owners, all the employees know. The owners are oblivious. They've put zero intentionality into curating that. And then, you know, they're trying to recruit and they're working uphill because people aren't taking a call. They're not interested, which gets us to, I'm ranting here a little bit, but it gets us to Glassdoor is a reflection of what's going on in the culture. So it's that moment, the reality check between what we're marketing as our culture versus what our culture actually is, which can be a scary kind of vulnerable place to be. And you and I both know that everybody has a voice, and that's not always good because we get some crazies. The crazies are the ones that want, and you know, we've got some of the craziest. If you want to know some crazy stuff about Jason and Benj, you can go look that up on Glassdoor and get a couple chuckles, or get really skeptical of us, one of the two. But like how does that play into this new world of recruiting? Like, I bet right now, just me ranting, somebody's having a light bulb moment of like, we can't hire anybody. Oh my gosh, I've never thought about our Glassdoor and what that is telling people before they even show up.
Yeah. So, you know, two things. The first thing is, even as, you know, direct and endorsing of Glassdoor as you just were, I just don't think you can overstate how important it is. Because it isn't what you're saying about yourself from that marketing thing that we're talking about up until this point in the conversation. It's what people who work for you, it's people who used to work with you. It's even now, it's people who have just interviewed with you. And there's a subset of how was the interview process? What were they like? And those types of things. So that's happening. And you cannot overstate how significant that is on the one hand. The good news,
that's like Bumble asking everybody who didn't get a second date how the first date went.
That's probably a separate conversation. I would agree. You're not going to create a lot of fans for people that you don't end up hiring. So there's definitely some maybe moral hazard in that piece, but you know, they're trying to innovate their platform.
Sure.
But the good news for, you know, business owners and business leaders is it's not like there are 50 different Glassdoors that you're trying to keep up with and stay on top of, and you have to manage all this. There's one, and there's one credible. And that's, to your point, you need to not only do a good house cleaning and get it on brand and get it potent, but you have to cultivate it. You know, you have to make part of your onboard, set yourself a reminder 6 or 9 months down the road to ask your new hires, hey, how are we doing? And make sure that you write a review, good, bad, or ugly. We need it out there. Make sure that you're doing the things you need to do to cultivate it.
That's right. And just to pull that back and plug, system and soul for a second, that's why this idea of engineering culture and the culture building tool exists and lives in there. And Jason was actually, very instrumental over years of just how to simplify that, and just what are the organizational habits that we have to create the attributes that ultimately we would want somebody to write about. We would want people to use these words, because a long time ago we said that's what the words we would want somebody to write, right? And not that we're scripting our employees, but that we're doing the things that would lead them to feel that way and think that way and act that way. So that's really good. So do we go as far as like full, I was, knocking this a minute ago, but in the recruiting as marketing, is that like funnels and landing pages and CRMs and targeted campaigns? Do we go that far?
In some cases, yes. I mean, it somewhat depends on what are your current and future needs, right? So we have some clients who are hiring hundreds of people in the next 2 years, and those people are 100% in that category. Yes, no doubt. You cannot leave any stone unturned. As far as your specific campaigns, you at least want some place where there's designated properties for an applicant to go that lines up with, hey, you're only going to get this one shot, and it's probably the top half of a landing page, for example. Make sure that you're getting that, whatever it is that is in your case, that you're getting it across to them in that moment. And then as far as CRM, I'm going to share an example with you now. 100%, you had better be capturing everybody who ever applies now and into the future, because to your point about planting a tree 20 years ago, I'm actively recruiting someone to join my team right now. And I went back through past applicants, which we leave a lot of opportunities open on the website. So that pipeline does fill, so that we're not in a total reactive state. And I outreached last week to maybe 8 past applicants that just happened to reach out at a time where we didn't have an opening, and they weren't, there wasn't anything to talk about, but they on paper, they have the right profile. And I've reached out, and I'm setting those appointments up, first one of those tomorrow. So 100%, you'd better capture all your talent in the same way you would if they were a customer.
That's awesome. And one of our favorite employees, who's now, obviously key leader, you just shared this morning that you made her an offer, a year and a half, what did you say, before she came on board, right?
Yeah. So our current managing director started out with us as an account lead. She's on the account team with us, and I'd extended her an offer in 2014. And she chose to stay with her current company and follow the World Cup and go be a part of that. And a little over a year later, that was all wrapped up and done. And she was in Atlanta, and we crossed paths, and I got her on board. And now she's 6 years with us.
Yeah. And so often we think about or hiring as this transactional type thing. But, man, I had a quote. I have no idea where this came from. I was flipping through one of my old notebooks this morning, and it said, hire for the future, not the role. Right. And if we're hiring for the role, it's transactional. Just get the person in there right now. They can do the thing. And there are some roles in companies that you just hire for the role. But when we're talking about leadership and we're talking about growing an organization and growing people, I love this idea of just hire for the future, and that's a great example of finding the right person and then, cultivating it for the right time. So, all right, 100%. We got points 2 and 3, and somehow I missed what the first one was. Take us all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. Well, so you got the first 2, which were digital first in terms of attracting customers and attracting talent to join your organization. And then the third one, which is brand to engineer culture, right?
Okay, you say right, but I have no idea what you just said. So, I mean, if I was listening, I probably didn't. I don't know what that means. So, talk about that. What is that? What does that entail?
Okay, so this issue has always been true. It is a heightened, to put it mildly, moment right now, which is business leaders, by and large, not all, but by and large, have a challenge in being the leaders of engineering culture intentionally. Okay. And some of it is because they just don't even understand what we're talking about. Like, what does that even mean, culture of my business? And if you asked 10 different people what, not just to describe what their culture was like, but what are we even talking about? And you can scour LinkedIn right now and you'll see a lot of conversations and how do I drive culture in a distributed workforce world.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes it's around what are your benefits? Sometimes it's around how do we communicate with each other? Do we do it audio only? Do we do it video? Some of it's around what kind of fun do we have together and how frequently? Some of it's around how often do we meet in person?
Yeah.
Do we do hybrid work? I mean, it's just all over the place, the present conversation. And that just really speaks to so many companies are lacking the core building blocks to even make good decisions and get intentional about engineering it, the culture that they want. So to your point about organizational habits, you can just pull those out of the sky, or they're just going to happen because they're going to happen by default. But if you want to engineer culture, you've got to make a lot of very strategic decisions about what your company looks and feels and acts like. And then make decisions based on that. And I don't think a lot of people are doing it. And a lot of people don't understand the connection of the two as they're trying to go forward in a new reality.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely true. All those things then become tools, right? Like all those examples of the culture conversations, those can be part of the conversation, but those are a means to the end, those aren't the end. And I like that lens. All right. So tell people you are relational by nature and enjoy a good pontification. So if somebody wanted to talk more about these things or was looking to get a kickstart on some of these things, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. I will answer your email, no doubt. Jason at Syrup Marketing is the fastest, best, easy way. And then from there, whatever method of communication is best for you. My ethos is to help you with your business challenges, whether that means us working together, you working with one of our strategic partners, or you just having a different way to think about your issues and realizing maybe it's not a real problem or it's not something you need to address right now.
Yeah, great. And I appreciate that. It sounds like you're open to any conversations. The people that you work, the companies that you work most specifically at Syrup Marketing is who?
Yes. So we're built for the lower middle market. So the 65 million and under crowd is who we are exclusively engineered to serve. Everything that we do and the way that we do it is for them. And we found that our blend of services and our growth model fits really, really well with B2B service companies and B2B software companies.
Got it. Awesome. Jason, thanks for hanging out and sharing our conversation with our whole community. Have a great holiday.
As well. Same to you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. System and Soul. We'll see you next week.